Have you ever wondered why one person's comment can ruin your entire day, while another person could say the exact same thing and you'd barely notice? Why does your co-worker's arrogance make your blood boil, but your friend's confidence feels inspiring? The answer lies in a psychological discovery that could change everything about how you experience difficult people. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, uncovered something remarkable. The person who angers you most is actually your greatest teacher, and he discovered 5 psychological secrets that can make you virtually immune to emotional manipulation. Today, we're diving deep into Jung's revolutionary insights to reveal how you can achieve unshakable inner peace. You'll discover why certain people push your buttons, how to create an invisible shield around your emotions, and most importantly, how to never let anyone steal your peace again. By the end of this video, you'll possess the psychological tools to remain calm, centered, and completely in control, no matter what anyone throws your way. This isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. This is about genuine emotional freedom, grounded in one of psychology's most brilliant minds. Have you ever noticed that certain people can get under your skin instantly, while others barely register on your emotional radar? There's a profound psychological reason for this, and it has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this. Meet Jessica, a talented marketing manager who prides herself on being professional and composed. During a team meeting, her colleague Marcus interrupts her presentation with a smug expression and says, "Jessica, that strategy is pretty basic. I think we need something more sophisticated." Jessica feels her blood boil. She wants to snap back, to put Marcus in his place, to defend her ideas. But why does Marcus's arrogance trigger her so intensely, when other people's comments barely affect her? Carl Jung discovered something revolutionary about human psychology. He realized that what irritates us most in others is often a reflection of something we haven't fully integrated within ourselves. Jung called this projection. We project our own unconscious material onto other people. In Jessica's case, Marcus's arrogance triggered her because it mirrored her own unconscious fear of being seen as unsophisticated or inadequate. The part of her that sometimes felt insecure about her expertise was suddenly confronted by someone displaying the very confidence she secretly wished she had. This is Jung's mirror principle in action. The people who trigger you aren't your enemies, they're your teachers, showing you exactly what you need to heal within yourself. As Jung famously said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This doesn't mean you should excuse toxic behavior or blame yourself for others' actions. It means understanding that your emotional reaction reveals something important about your inner world. So how do you apply this insight practically? I want you to try something I call the trigger decoder. The next time someone really gets under your skin, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. First, what specific trait or behavior in this person am I reacting to? Get specific. Is it their arrogance, their neediness, their aggression? Second, where have I seen this trait before? Often, it reminds us of someone from our past, a parent, a sibling, or even a version of ourselves we've rejected. Third, what would it mean if I possessed this trait? This is the key question. What are you afraid this says about you? When Jessica used the trigger decoder, she realized Marcus's confidence reminded her of her father, who often dismissed her ideas as a child. She was afraid that if she appeared too confident, she'd be seen as arrogant like him. By understanding this, she could separate her past wounds from the present situation. The beautiful thing about the mirror principle is that it instantly shifts your focus from trying to change others to understanding yourself. You stop being a victim of other people's behavior and start becoming the master of your own emotional world. But understanding why you're triggered is just the first step. The real power comes in learning how to respond rather than react. Which brings us to our next secret. There's a moment, just a split second, between when something happens and when you respond. In that tiny gap lies your freedom. Most people never even notice this space exists. But Jung understood that expanding this gap is the key to emotional mastery. Let me tell you about David, a software engineer who was having dinner with his extended family. His uncle, who'd had a few drinks, looked at David and said, "Still playing with computers, huh? When are you going to get a real job and start a family like a normal person?" David felt the familiar surge of anger and embarrassment. His first instinct was to fire back with something cutting about his uncle's own failures. But instead, something made him pause. In that pause, David remembered Jung's teaching about the space between stimulus and response. He took a breath and asked himself, "What's really happening here? Is this about my career choices, or is my uncle projecting his own insecurities?" By expanding that response gap, David was able to choose his reaction rather than being controlled by it. He simply smiled and said, "I'm really happy with my work, Uncle Jim. How's your garden coming along this year?" This is what Jung meant when he talked about becoming conscious. Most of our reactions are unconscious, automatic responses programmed by our past experiences. But when we create space between what happens and how we respond, we reclaim our power. Viktor Frankl, whose work built on Jung's insights, captured this perfectly. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So how do you create this space in your own life? Try what I call the conscious pause protocol. It's a 4-step process you can use whenever you feel triggered. Step 1. Notice the trigger. The moment you feel that familiar surge of anger or frustration, recognize it. Say to yourself, "I'm being triggered right now." Step 2. Take a conscious breath. One deep, slow breath interrupts the automatic reaction cycle and creates space for choice. Step 3. Ask the question, "What would my wisest self do right now?" This connects you to your higher judgment, rather than your emotional impulse. Step 4. Choose your response. You might choose to address the issue calmly, change the subject, or simply let it go. The key is that you're choosing rather than reacting. The beauty of the conscious pause protocol is that it works in any situation. Whether it's a rude comment from a coworker, a critical remark from a family member, or even someone cutting you off in traffic, you always have those 4 steps available. David started using this technique regularly. When his uncle made similar comments at future family gatherings, David found himself genuinely unbothered. He'd created enough space to see his uncle's behavior for what it was, a reflection of his uncle's own dissatisfaction, not a judgment on David's choices. Remember, this isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about creating enough space to respond from wisdom rather than wounds. You're not denying your feelings. You're choosing how to express them. But what about those people who seem determined to push your boundaries no matter how consciously you respond? That's where our next secret becomes crucial. Carl Jung understood that to become truly individuated, to become your authentic self, you must learn to protect your psychological space from other people's chaos. This isn't about building walls or becoming cold. It's about creating what I call an energy shield that filters out negativity while letting in genuine connection. Let me share the story of Maria, a nurse who loved helping people, but found herself constantly drained by one particular colleague, Janet. Janet would corner Maria during breaks, dumping her relationship problems, work frustrations, and family drama. Maria felt obligated to listen. After all, she was naturally empathetic. But she'd go home emotionally exhausted. One day, Maria realized she was giving away her emotional energy without any boundaries. She was so focused on being kind that she'd forgotten to be kind to herself. This is where Jung's concept of individuation becomes crucial. You can't become your true self if you're constantly absorbing other people's emotional states. Maria decided to create an energy shield. She started by recognizing that compassion without boundaries isn't actually compassion, it's enabling. By allowing Janet to dump her problems without taking responsibility, Maria was preventing Janet from developing her own emotional resilience. Jung taught that healthy relationships require differentiation, the ability to maintain your own identity while connecting with others. When you lose yourself in other people's emotions, you're not helping them. You're creating an unhealthy dynamic. So how do you build your own energy shield? Try what I call the energy audit. It's a simple process for identifying where your emotional energy is going and reclaiming control. First, track your energy for a week. After every interaction, ask yourself, do I feel energized or drained? Keep a simple note on your phone. Second, identify the patterns. Who are the people who consistently drain your energy? What situations leave you feeling depleted? Third, create protective boundaries. This might mean limiting time with certain people, changing the subject when conversations become toxic, or simply saying, I can see you're going through a lot, but I'm not in a place to discuss this right now. Fourth, practice the energy shield visualization. Before entering a potentially draining situation, imagine a protective barrier around yourself. This isn't about blocking people out. It's about maintaining your emotional center. Maria started applying these principles with Janet. When Janet began her usual litany of complaints, Maria would say, Janet, I care about you, but I think you'd benefit more from talking to a counselor about this. I'm here if you want to chat about work stuff, though. At first, Janet was taken aback, but gradually she began to respect Maria's boundaries and even started seeking professional help for her problems. Maria's energy shield didn't push Janet away. It actually helped their relationship become healthier. The key insight here is that boundaries aren't selfish. They're essential for authentic relationships. When you protect your energy, you show up as your best self for the people who matter most. Jung believed that your primary responsibility is to your own psychological development. This isn't narcissism, it's wisdom. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't help others grow if you're constantly depleted. But even with strong boundaries, people will sometimes challenge you with criticism. That's where our next secret becomes powerful. Here's something that might surprise you. The harshest criticism you receive often contains the seeds of your greatest growth. Carl Jung discovered that what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or deny, often gets revealed through other people's feedback, even when it's delivered poorly. Let me tell you about Michael, a freelance writer who thought he was pretty good at his craft. Then he submitted an article to a demanding editor who sent it back with a scathing review. This piece lacks depth and originality. It reads like you're trying to impress rather than inform. The whole thing feels superficial. Michael's first reaction was pure anger. Who was this editor to judge his work? He'd been writing for years. But as the initial sting faded, Michael began to wonder, what if there was truth in the criticism, even if it was harshly delivered? Jung taught that criticism, especially the kind that really stings, often points to what he called the golden shadow, positive qualities we haven't fully developed. The editor's feedback about depth and originality hit Michael hard, because deep down, he knew he'd been playing it safe, avoiding the vulnerability that comes with truly meaningful writing. This is the essence of criticism alchemy, the ability to extract gold from even the harshest feedback. It's not about accepting all criticism as valid, but about looking for the grain of truth that might be hidden within it. The process starts with separating the delivery from the message. Poor delivery doesn't invalidate a potentially useful message, and good delivery doesn't make invalid criticism true. You're looking for patterns and insights, not trying to please everyone. Here's how to practice golden shadow extraction when criticism hits. First, let the initial emotional reaction pass. Don't respond immediately. Give yourself time to process the feelings without acting on them. Second, ask yourself, what if there's 10% truth in this criticism? What would that mean? Even harsh or unfair criticism sometimes contains a kernel of insight. Third, look for the pattern. If you're hearing similar feedback from multiple sources, pay attention. Your shadow might be trying to get your attention. Fourth, consider the source. Is this person in a position to give meaningful feedback? Do they have expertise in this area? Are they generally supportive of your growth? Fifth, mine for gold. What skill or quality might you need to develop? What aspect of yourself might you be neglecting? Michael used this process with his editor's harsh feedback. He realized that his fear of vulnerability was keeping his writing surface level. The criticism, though painful, was pointing him toward a deeper authenticity in his work. He started writing more personally, sharing his own struggles and insights, rather than just presenting information. His writing became more powerful, more resonant, and yes, more original. The harsh criticism had been a gift, though it didn't feel like one at the time. Remember, this isn't about becoming a doormat or accepting abuse. Some criticism is genuinely unfair or malicious, and you should protect yourself from that. But when criticism stings in a way that feels deeper than the surface insult, it's worth exploring what your shadow might be trying to tell you. Jung believed that everything in life could serve our growth if we knew how to receive it. Criticism. Alchemy is about transforming even painful feedback into fuel for your development. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it makes you virtually immune to criticism's emotional impact. When you're genuinely curious about what you might learn, criticism becomes information rather than attack. But there's one more secret that Jung discovered, perhaps the most powerful of all for maintaining unshakable peace. If you've stayed with me this far, you're serious about transforming your relationship with difficult people and situations. I want to share something powerful with you. If these insights are helping you see your emotional world differently, consider subscribing to our channel. We dive deep into psychological wisdom that can genuinely change your life, and I'd love to continue this journey with you. Now, let's explore Jung's most profound secret for emotional freedom. Carl Jung was fascinated by the ancient practice of alchemy, the attempt to transform base metals into gold. He realized that the same principle could be applied to our emotional lives. What if you could transform negative experiences into wisdom, anger into understanding, and frustration into growth? Let me share the story of Rachel, a teacher who was having the worst day of her career. Her principal had criticized her in front of colleagues, her lesson plans were rejected, and several students had been particularly difficult. She felt angry, unappreciated, and ready to quit. But then Rachel remembered something she'd learned about Jung's approach to difficult experiences. Instead of letting the negative emotions consume her, she decided to try an experiment. She asked herself, what if this terrible day is actually preparing me for something important? What if there's a hidden gift in this experience? This wasn't about toxic positivity or pretending everything was fine. It was about what Jung called holding the tension of opposites, acknowledging the difficulty while remaining open to what it might teach. Rachel began to see that her principal's criticism, though poorly delivered, was highlighting real areas where she could grow. The difficult students were teaching her patience and creativity. The rejected lesson plans were pushing her to be more innovative. This is the essence of gratitude transmutation, the ability to find meaning and growth in even the most challenging experiences. It's not about being grateful for bad things happening. It's about being grateful for your capacity to grow through them. Jung believed that our greatest challenges often contain our greatest opportunities for development. The person who irritates you most might be showing you exactly what you need to integrate. The criticism that stings deepest might be pointing toward your next level of growth. Here's how to practice the alchemical reframe when you're facing difficult people or situations. First, acknowledge the negative experience without trying to fix or change it immediately. Say to yourself, "This is hard, and that's okay." Second, ask the alchemical question. What if this experience is exactly what I need for my growth right now? What might it be trying to teach me? Third, look for the hidden curriculum. What skills is this situation forcing you to develop? Patience, boundary setting, self-advocacy, clear communication. Fourth, find the gratitude thread. What are you grateful for in this situation? Maybe it's your own resilience, the support of friends, or simply the fact that you're alive to experience growth. Fifth, commit to the learning. How will you be different because of this experience? What will you do differently going forward? Rachel used this process throughout her challenging year. Instead of letting difficult experiences embitter her, she let them strengthen her. She became more confident in her teaching, more skilled at handling criticism, and more compassionate toward difficult students. The most remarkable thing about gratitude transmutation is that it changes not just how you feel about negative experiences, but how you attract them. When you're genuinely grateful for growth opportunities, you stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a student of life. This doesn't mean you become passive or accept poor treatment. It means you maintain your power to find meaning and growth in any situation, which is the ultimate form of emotional freedom. Jung taught that the goal of life isn't to avoid difficulty, but to transform it into wisdom. When you master gratitude transmutation, you become alchemically immune to other people's negativity, because you can transform any experience into gold. These 5 secrets work together to create what Jung called individuation, becoming your authentic self. When you understand that triggers reveal your inner world, you can expand the response gap to choose conscious reactions. When you protect your energy with healthy boundaries, you can transform criticism into growth opportunities. And when you alchemize negative experiences into wisdom, you become truly free. This isn't just theory, it's practical transformation. The mirror principle shifts you from victim to student. The response gap gives you conscious choice. The energy shield protects without isolation. Criticism, alchemy turns attacks into insights. Gratitude, transmutation transforms any experience into gold. Together, these create emotional sovereignty. You're no longer at the mercy of others' moods, words, or actions. You become the author of your own emotional experience. But reading won't change your life. You must practice. I challenge you to choose one technique and commit to using it for 7 days. Notice what happens. Pay attention to how relationships change when you stop reacting and start responding consciously. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, boundaries over people-pleasing, or growth over victimhood, you're claiming your psychological sovereignty. Your emotions don't control you. Others' opinions don't define you. You have the power to remain unshakable, not by avoiding difficulty, but by transforming it into wisdom. If these insights resonated with you, subscribe and join our community committed to deep psychological growth. Share your experiences below. Which technique excites you most? Thank you for joining this journey into Jung's profound insights. Your commitment to self-understanding is exactly what the world needs. Keep exploring, keep growing, and remember, you have everything within you to create unshakable peace. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and remember, the person who angers you most is your greatest teacher.